Hi, everybody. Hi again for those who didn't listen to me. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And it was like all the sessions were really wonderful. While I was being called for this session, always the big question is that what is that message that you want to speak out there, and would it still make sense to people after so many of discussions? So I thought we'll speak on outcomes today. And I want to do it in a more interactive way. I'll need help of you folks to really let me arrive to my concept by the end of it. So I'll come to let me introduce myself. I forgot that. So I'm a leadership coach. I help organizations migrate from command-based leadership model to more trust and purpose-driven leadership model. How do we do that? I'll try to finish that up in next 15 to 20 minutes. So the first question that I have for you folks is, why do businesses exist? Make money? All right, that's one answer. It's always the most evident one. Provide service. All right, that's the second option that we have. Please. I couldn't. Okay, got it. Okay, I have third answer. To meet the purpose. To meet the purpose is an excellent one. Yeah, almost anything fits in a frame of purpose as soon as we start talking about it. Yes, Vatan? To solve a problem. Yes, to solve a problem as well. So while we look at businesses in so many definitions, I wanted to set one context here which can actually provide me the base of the thought that I brought here. So I'll give you one simple analogy to understand this with, which is, if we all use cars, all the cars require some sort of fuel. It will require probably a petrol, diesel, maybe gasoline, right, or electricity. But it will always require some fuel. But the purpose of the car will never be to get it refueled. The purpose of the car will always be to take you from point A to point B, maybe making your travel convenient and so forth. And that is what goes wrong with the definitions of business most of the times when we look at it, that it is about making money or it is about probably solving a problem. In my opinion, more holistic definition is that businesses exist to generate value. And they generate value for every single aspect out there. They generate value for employees, they generate value for customers, and of course, founders generate value for themselves, right? So there are so many parties involved in the entire game, but it's a game of value generation. Now, as soon as we understand that businesses exist to generate value, it actually opens up the entire era of what we can actually look at. So let's understand the first of it, which is, what are organization value chains and how does value exactly happens in a workplace? So I have one example for you, which I've taken from a social reform segment. This is one sample value chain, how it looks like. So any business, team, group of people out there, they're made out of resources. Resources do activities which brings outputs. If you retain the output for a period of time, it translates itself into outcome. If you retain the outcome for a period of time, it translates into impact. So as a business, as an individual, right, if you have to bring impact, like this is how the value chain looks like today. Now I'll come back to you, which is, what is the difference between outputs and outcomes? Again, answers. I can come down for this, but please speak loud, I can understand. Okay. Output is a result, all right? Outcome is a result. All right. It's a broader term, and okay. Any other difference? It's qualitative, quantitative, or something more technical? Yes, please. Sorry? All right, input is output, and okay, got it. All right, so again, coming to my point, if we look at it, the words are very different, and we all understand what outputs are and what outcomes are. We use it on our everyday basis. All the organizations, every team manager, leader out there is going to speak that become outcome-driven, right? Focus on outcome. But when it comes to really defining the difference between the output and outcome, it's pretty ambiguous. So let me try to explain the concept a little bit here, which is, if you look at, I've taken this example from our social welfare segment again. So there was this village where every day, villagers would go to river, which used to flow like 5 kilometers away from the village. They will take their utensils, fill their water, come back, and that's how life worked. But then eventually one social welfare organization figured out that this is something which is causing a lot of problems for villagers, so they wanted to fix it. So what they did is they hired civil engineers, got some raw material, got some capital investment. They did the activity of site selection and survey, planning and designing and constructing a well in middle of the village. The output was the well, right? So the activities that they did, the output came out to be the well that was designed in center of the village. Outcome was that villagers started using well for their need. They stopped going to the river and they started doing that. And the impact was the overall well-being of to the village. Now again, in this context, if we look at the difference between outputs and outcomes, this is what it is. Outputs is the immediate result of activities that people perform in business. Outcomes is a behavioral change which your customers experience. So, is it clear? All right. I'll try to build it a little more. Let's take, we all are HRs here, right? We all have been using HR technologies for quite some time now. And if we look at HR-based solutions out there, in 2014, 2013 frame, when we actually started building our platform, at that point of time, the normal way of getting things done was that there was an Excel in place, which used to work as single source of truth, and then you manipulate that to really get data out of it, insights out of it, and act upon it. We thought that this is something which is probably a little mundane. We can actually go better on it, and we built a platform. And we kept providing that platform out there to the community, to the HR community for more than a decade. And today, the behavioral change that we have achieved is that nobody uses HR as their base platform, Excel as their base platform. There is always an HR technology in place. That's the first thing that you solve as a problem in your workplace, right? So that's the difference. The output is an immediate result of activity, and the outcome is the behavioral change. Now, I have some examples for you to go through, which is, if we look at talent acquisition, right? A lot of times, we focus upon rolling out job descriptions, run interviews, send offer letters. The outcomes that we are trying to aim is that we find right people and right people find us, right? So that's the behavioral change that we want to bring into the organization. We don't want to end up being with wrong people or wrong people finding us, right? If we talk about other processes, performance management, we set goals, reviews, ratings, but at the end of the day, what do we really want? We want our high performers to thrive into the company, right? So that's something which you really want to figure out. If we talk about learning and development, we offer courses, build learning paths, track training hours, but the real outcome that we want out of it is that people should apply that knowledge to grow the way they are, to actually add value in a higher way into the organization. And finally, the HR analytics, we implement systems, launch workflows, publish dashboards. Why all that? So that we can become more data-driven, can probably focus more on strategic tasks rather than doing the mundane transactional tasks which are required to be done. And that was one big problem that we were trying to solve in 2015. Too much paperwork involved, and we thought that paperwork is not really that gracious method of getting HR processes done. And that's where technology started to happen. So this was the difference that I wanted to establish in terms of what's the difference between outputs and outcomes. So while your people are doing goal settings in your workplaces, you can always focus upon making them outcome-based goal settings. They should really focus that what is that behavioral change that they're trying to bring through the work that they're going to do in the upcoming time frame. All right, so now talking about one final piece into my talk, which is, if you look at the big strategy frame inside the organization, a business always starts with a vision, right? There is always a founder which has a very clear sense of why they're doing whatever they do, why do they start the business, right? So it could be a very simple purpose of maybe delivering a pizza to a pizza lover to a greater than humanity purpose like sending a rocket to the moon. But at the end of the day, it will always have a vision statement, right? Anybody knows what SpaceX vision statement is? Make a guess, it's very easy. What's SpaceX going to do for you in next 20 years, maybe? Colonizing Mars, yes, that was the one that they wrote, but then Elon Musk revised it to making humanity interstellar, right? So that's the new vision statement that they chase. It's more audacious, more aspirational, and that's how visions are written. So vision is something which is 20, 25 years ahead of where you are, probably. So vision has to be aspirational. It has time for getting it done. Vision breaks down into mission breaks down into strategic objectives, which break down into department objectives, which break down into individual objectives, which breaks down into KPIs and KRAs, and eventually metrics. If you look at how businesses operate today, goals usually flow top to bottom. and value flows bottom top, right? So your bottom line performs work, which keeps on getting credited up top, and then eventually that's how organizations operate and create profits. So this was something which I wanted to explain. Now, coming to the last part, as I have 20 seconds left, why all this context? Because I wanted to present my solution in a deeper light than it is usually looked at. How many of you use HRMS here? HRIS, HR CAP systems? All right, is it like 10% of the people using it yet? All right, okay, amazing. Okay, so that gives me a lot of scope to actually make sense out of it. So we are an HR tech platform. Keka, we started somewhere in 2016 mid, and at that point of time, again, we were trying to really be that helping hand in getting your outputs done. We saw the outputs required out of all the different processes that HRs do on a day-to-day basis, all the multiple hats that they wear, from talent acquisition to performance management to HR ops to payroll, right? So many things which are required to be done. And again, most of these are outputs so that they can actually bring in or study the data to arrive to more strategic intelligence. So we as a platform, we operate as a helping hand. We give you a core HR platform which will actually help you digitize the entire data for yourself so that you can have more clearer visibility in terms of how does your workforce look like, right? Again, once core HR module is set, you can actually take care of your hiring processes, you can take care of time and attendance policies from your system, you can run payroll, and again, performance management. So we operate with more than 4 goal-setting methodologies, from SMART goals to balanced scorecards to OKRs to KRA KPI. Whichever methodology you want to implement in your organization, you can always use the platform to drive more effective results through the HR processes that you run. So that was my piece. Thank you very much, everybody, for being patient. I hope it would make sense.